Inspiration is not a plan. This is going to be a short introduction to you on how, if you've ever had moments during worship, during prayer, or even in the shower doing normal activities where suddenly everything felt clear. You knew exactly what God was calling you to do, and then Monday happened. As it always does, there's a problem. Here's what nobody talks about. Inspiration itself is not a plan. A powerful thought can move across your heart, but without a process, it won't move your life. Most believers live in a cycle of spiritual highs followed by practical paralysis. Not because they lack faith, but because they lack a framework. They confuse the spark with the system, and they confuse the gap between what God whispers and what they actually build. That's where purpose goes to die. So today we're going to talk a little bit about a solution where we've got three items. Why we've created a faith-centered life planning blueprint is for these three items. It's a purposeful path, and I want to share these three things that change everything. One is the determination of your purpose, and it must be thought through from the context of your overall life's purpose. And the determination of that overall purpose must inform the rest of your life's planning and your eventual life's plan. Second thing is goal achievement. And there's a cycle that we're going to talk about and how that cycle informs the assessment of how well you are doing on the execution of the plan. The third thing is leadership, or a top-down process based on discipline and a routine. We're going to talk about replacing the old secular SMART goal formula with something that actually fits who you are. Goals that are God-honoring, they're realistic, resourced, accountable, concrete, and eternally significant. Now, every goal you set carries weight for the kingdom, not just the calendar. Inspiration itself starts with the journey, but a process walks it out. That's the purposeful path that we've developed with what we call the faith-centered life planning blueprint. So, talk a little bit about one thing that leaders do. Leaders, they give guidance. Plans that are going to take on an enemy or confront an enemy must be developed with a vision and with understanding. So I'll bring up a quote that I heard many years ago, and it's that all great leaders are also great readers. Readers. Why is that? Well, reading, that's another place that you could go to for inspiration. You read books about business, you read books about your faith, you read books about different processes. And as you go through them, you're going to get an inspiration, you're going to read it. And even if you listen to books on tape are going to give you inspiration as you're going along. So you sit there and you ask yourself, well, what am I going to do with this inspiration that I've got? Where do I put it? Well, what you get when you get the blueprint is you have an ability to create the context. Now, where can you sit there and place this inspiration? You have an understanding of where that inspiration can fit in. And it also helps you for further developing any adaptations that you're going to have to your plan, and or a continuation of a plan that you've already put into place, and you go, I've learned a little bit new. I'm going to expand this particular aspect or phase of the plan. So another part of planning and the recognition of inspiration and the understanding of how it's going to work is you got to recognize, and most of us do, recognize that there's evil in this world. And there's a lot of it. We see it every day. And as you learn more about it, you're going to start to understand some of the methods that evil puts into place. So this is the second major aspect that we want to talk about today. You got evil. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to adapt? How are you going to put into place plans, planning, activities, and goals and objectives in order to counter the methods that evil is putting in our place in our world today? Leaders, you know you got to fight them. So one of the things that we did, we took the blueprint, is based upon the fact that who knows how to fight an enemy? The military. It's part of their upbringing. It's part of their overall processes. And so what we've done is we've developed a blueprint that takes into account how does the enemy act, anticipates what his actions are going to be based on what we want to do in our life, based on our purpose. So now you can start to see how you get an alignment. I'm getting alignment of my purpose. I'm going to get alignment of my actions. And I'm also going to be able to say, hey, I'm going to design new actions and activities that are going to counter the threat, counter the enemy, counter the evil. So all of a sudden now you've got this context that you're putting all of this information that you're getting, all these inspirations that you're getting. You're saying, now I have something I can actually do with it. You can put it into a plan. And that leads us to the last part, setting goals. You've got actions that you want to take. If you understand what those actions are relative to the purpose, and as we all know, the thing that's the most important of any task that we perform is why we're doing it. So that purpose, now we put that into the context of a task that we want to perform. And then we can say, in order to achieve that purpose, here's my goal with respect to that task. So what this is giving us also now is it's giving us a framework in order to be able to say, how well am I doing? And so in order to do that, what we call that is an assessment. Here's what I planned on doing. Here's the goal I planned on achieving. And then you can now measure toward how well you're doing in achieving that particular goal. And if you're not, or something else gets in the way, or the enemy thwarts you in some way, shape, or form, now you have a context to go back and say, here's what I'm going to do to adapt it. This is what the military does all the time, because there's always a thing that you got to keep in mind when you're planning an operation or you're planning activities against a threat, is the fact that not only do you have to act, but he's going to act as well. So you can anticipate what his actions are going to be, but in the context of when you actually confront that evil, it's not always going to be exactly the way you expected it to be. So your counteractions to his evil actions have to adapt as you learn more about him, and you're going to start to understand yourself better. So that's the beauty of this whole thing. It's got top-down aspects. It's got a framework for you to be able to look at what is going on, how well am I doing in achieving my goals. And when you get involved with a threat and the threat starts to thwart your actions, you can always step back, do an assessment, and say, here's how I'm going to adapt. If all of this kind of resonates with you and it's something that you would like to get a little more information on, click the link below. Set up a meeting. We can discuss it. We can talk about it, set up a framework. And if you want to take it further and actually develop this deeper into your particular or your specific leader plan or planning with respect to your family, the different roles that you've got in your life as a father, as a husband, as a leader, as someone that's in your charitable organization or in your community or at work, doesn't matter. They all fit into this particular framework. Set it up, click the link below, set up the meeting. We'll talk about it. And if you really start to use this and it feels good for you and you think it's applicable, we could set up a further discussion after that. So I appreciate your time, appreciate your attention to what we have here. God bless and good luck in life.